Jeff Monosso with Fox News Radio, now joining us here on Montana Talks. Jeff, always a pleasure. So what's the latest with these plant closures and now the pushback from Capitol Hill?
Hey, it's good to be with you. So, GM has obviously faced opposition not only from President Trump, as well as lawmakers and even Americans in the wake of the company's announcement to close several U.S. factories and give about 15,000 employees walking papers to accommodate its investment, its future investment on electric and self-driving cars. So that's going to continue. That process, whether or not the company is able to put something else in those plants, like Lordstown, Hamtramck, Michigan, is yet to be seen. That's what the president wants. That's what federal officials who represent these states are demanding of GM as it tries to work through this. But on the incentive, the $7,500 tax incentive that buyers of these electric cars get, that's going away, and so GM has got all of its lobbyists together. I mean, it's hired an army of lobbyists. It's not just GM; it's Tesla, it's Nissan. A bunch of them are doing it. Going to D.C. to lobby Congress to change the law the current law caps the incentive at about 200,000 vehicles per manufacturer. GM wants this blown open just to be just kind of to be an ongoing thing where the taxpayer is going to subsidize these vehicles, and honestly, it's vehicles that people don't want to buy. You look at the Chevy Volt. That was their basically their firebrand, the beginning of the hybrid and electric fleet type of vehicle for GM, and nobody's buying this thing, so it's being scrapped.
Because that's what really led to the shutdowns, right? That's what led to the shutdowns. There were people who tried to politicize the shutdowns, but what really led to those shutdowns in Michigan was people aren't buying the cars that those plants were making. So it wasn't because of the economy or because of politics. It was just, hey, people aren't buying those cars. But
people aren't buying them, and there's a sense that I think that in talking to people, I think there's a sense that electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, self-driving vehicles are kind of being forced down our throat. And so it'll be, at some point, we'll have no choice but to drive a vehicle that's electric, that perhaps drives itself. I don't see the appetite for that. I think that part of the love of the automobile is the freedom and to be able to drive that vehicle. It might work for some, but I don't think it's going to work for most. In terms of combustion motors versus electric, and talking about how green these things are. Sure, they're green in terms of not having to buy fuel, but fuel pays for our roads via the gas tax, and in terms of the carbon footprint, these electric vehicles are much dirtier than regular cars on the manufacturing side of these things. So there's a lot to discuss, but whether or not GM and its lobbyists or these other car companies and their lobbyists are able to convince Congress to stick something in where the American taxpayer is going to continue to foot the bill to subsidize these vehicles that, again, not a lot of people are buying, remains to be seen. President Bush is standing in opposition against that for sure.
Or President Trump, yeah. Well,
President Trump, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I always remember a great quote from one of our former U.S. senators here in Montana. He said, which is an ag-heavy state, he said, you can't haul a heifer with a Geo Metro,
Yeah.
Which is kind of dating things. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, people, they're buying more pickups, they're buying more SUVs, or even now
That's right.
it's almost like these smaller cars and sedans are almost being, getting even away from just the electric vehicles. It's almost like they're moving away from even smaller cars just to smaller SUVs. It's almost like everything is becoming kind of like an SUV anymore.
They're not selling those. So Ford has scrapped a bunch of its sedans, and GM is scrapping many of its smaller cars and sedans, like the Chevy Cruze, which was manufactured in Lordstown. That's one of the reasons why that plant is being shuttered. But John Barrasso, senator out of Wyoming, he's the chairman of the Senate Environment and Public Works Tax Committee, he introduced this legislation back in October to abolish this tax credit, basically saying, look, let the market work, and if you make a product that people will want, that's affordable. The truth is electric cars are not affordable to buy. If you make them affordable and you make them in a way that people will want them, people will buy them, and scrapping that tax credit would save us, the taxpayer, about $20 billion over the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, and the market has developed enough, the technology has developed enough. I mean, I could see maybe as an initial starter, hey, we want to get these vehicles out there on the market, so yeah, we'll have an initial tax credit to get this thing, kind of like the wind energy tax credit. Okay, all of these things, had incentives to get them up and running. Well, now they're kind of up and running. I mean, Tesla has, I've seen their charging stations across the state. I've seen a few Teslas here and there. So at what point do you say, okay, you're up and running now? Now you're able to sell your product. You don't need these incentives that other cars don't get.
That's right. That's a perfect point. How long is it going to take for you guys to continue to be viable? Because if it wasn't for tax subsidies, we wouldn't know a car company called Tesla, and their cars that are they're priced on the heavy side, very expensive, so most people can't afford them. Yet we are subsidizing these $90,000, $100,000+ vehicles. They've got a vehicle in the $30,000, $40,000 range, but even for many Americans, that's a lot.